Hey folks, this is Rebel Rousing Rich Bergeron.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Tornado Tony Penicow.
And Psychic Tom Hedgett with the tiny crystal ball.
Alright. Well, I'm going to start off the broadcast with a lighthearted story about a fight in my neck of the woods. Now, this has got two different elements of what we do every week about boxing. Okay, we do the upset of the week usually, or the mismatch of the week, and then we do the Jesus fight of the week. We got a little bit of both.
Yeah.
This is more like miracle fight of the week. The middleweights, the guys that fought in Derry, New Hampshire, the fight card that I missed. This guy is from the Massachusetts area. Got his first victory in more than 9 years in this bout. And there's an interesting twist I'm going to have to tell you about in a minute. But get this, his nickname is Slow Motion. It's probably not a good nickname for a boxer. Larry Slow Motion Smith, fighting out of Dallas, recorded his first victory in more than 9 years, taking a 4-round unanimous decision from none other than Jesus, the Juice, Cintrone. 41-year-old Smith went 0-39-2 during his winless streak, and he actually dropped his opponent in the first round. Jesus Javier, the Juice Cintrone, and Cintrone's record is 1-14-2, coincidentally. So, and if you look at their records online on the box rec, you find the interesting twist is that, okay, the winless streak started at Texas Station Casino in Las Vegas, a Fertitta-owned casino, and the losing streak ended in my home state. So, here you have it.
Deep meeting there, buddy. Deep synchronicity at work. Yes, sir.
Something's happening.
All forces are in action here.
Yeah,
Oh.
but I looked
Mechanics.
at both their records, and actually, it's not that bad. You know, Slow Motion has actually fought a lot of guys with winning records. Every single loss on his card, including his debut, was a fighter with a winning record. And the last guy he knocked out and won a fight before all this stuff went down was a 4-5 fighter or something like that. Let me get it up here. I got his record here somewhere. Yeah. So, yeah, this is Javier Cintrone. Now, he hasn't fought anybody with this much experience ever, either. Javier. The best record of anybody he's fought up to this point, as far as number of fights, was a guy who was 4-2 in his second fight in Boston. And that was a TKO. That was Greg Vendetti, who just fought the other night. Was it Greg Vendetti? This would be a super crazy coincidence. Anyway, that was at the Royale nightclub back in 2015, so 5 years. Yeah, that would make sense. So anyway, yeah. So they throw him in against that guy who's 10-44. Didn't work out so well. A lot of experience, those 44 losses. So anyway, yeah. 0-39-2 during his winless streak, and it's all over. So that's one of the fights I missed. There was some other good ones I read about. I posted on the website. And here's some notables too from before we get off the subject. Yeah, that was the same Greg Vendetti that fought what's his name the other night? The Arislan De Lara. I actually watched that fight. So, before he beat Jesus, Slow Motion had some pretty tough opponents. Jose Antonio Rivera back in 2018 when he was 41-6-1. Lost by TKO there. Ashley Theophane, he fought in Wyndham, lost by unanimous decision. Theophane was 41-8-1 at the time. Fought a lot of undefeated fighters too, 10-0, 7-0, 4-0. Obviously wasn't afraid to take a fight. Fought Brian Vera when he was 24-11 out in San Antonio. That was a TKO loss back in 2017. No cheap dates. He even fought our old former guest, Mark DeLuca. Lost to him in Melrose by TKO when Mark was 12-0. Yeah, 6 degrees of separation. Even fought the crafty Gary O'Sullivan, 18-1. James McGirt, 22-1. Daniel Sandoval, he fought him in Toyota Center in Houston. 30-2 was his record at the time. Fought Wally Omatoso when he was 21-0. And he lost by KO. Boy, I'm a poet and didn't know it. Yeah, so lots of tough opponents on those losses.
And you know what? And I'll tell you this, Rich. From being, in a gym where a lot of it depends on. It's funny as they say it in the original Rocky movie. About who your manager is. I had a manager. That was the thing. You ain't got no manager. That's why you never even. Why did he go? Because he had a manager. When I was out in Philadelphia, we had one guy there, and he was a good trainer. Terrible manager.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, he helped, teach me a lot of things, fight-wise. But I've watched him, on the other side of it, and I was like, man, I could never let him manage a career because, and I've said this before on the air many times, I saw guys that I was in the ring with them, guys that were good, tough, scrappy fighters, 1-4, 0-7, records like that. I'm like, no, these guys are better than that. But then it was a perfect example. We had a guy, super middleweight. His name was Andre. And Andre and I spar a lot. He was tall. He's about 6'2", built like a super middleweight version of Evander Holyfield. Jacked, tough, mean-looking guy. Andre was notoriously a slow starter, though. So when you would spar with him, you'd want to jump on him quick, because by the time he warmed up the third, fourth round, he was hard to deal with, right? So Andre was going to make his pro debut. Well, they put him right in with a guy that was an Olympian from Egypt. So he's already, under a heavy experience deficit. So they basically put him in there to lose, and that was a guy named Kabari Salim, who ended up beating Andre. He headbutted him in the face, he broke his nose, really roughed him up, and they stopped the fight. And then Salim ended up eventually getting a title fight with Joe Calzaghe in a losing effort. But I was like, you get a good Andre, who was a good fighter. But he never had a chance to thrive because in his first fight, he was thrown in against a guy with such a, even not professional experience, they were both making pro debuts, but a wealth of experience differential in the amateur circuit. And he was definitely on the B side. He never had a chance. His second fight, they signed him up. He was going to fight this guy whose brother was the promoter. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that happened, the fight didn't happen. Yeah, I was at the weigh-in. So when I read the article the next day on why the fight fell through, I'm like, this is media bullshit because I was there. He was going to fight a guy from Greece. His brother was the promoter. Andre comes in this big one-piece Michael Myers-looking overall with a pull-down winter hat. It was in January. Pull-down winter hat, looking nasty as could be. He takes the overall off, gets on the scale, and he's flexing, and the muscles are popping out of muscles. And this Greek guy looks at him and goes, I'm not fighting him. Are you nuts? So then they were like, oh, we're going to switch, and I'm going to fight this guy, and the Greek guy will fight this guy who was like 0-8 or something like that. And then, but that guy failed a physical. So then the next day they're like, oh, because of this opponent didn't show up. I'm like, Andre showed up. I saw him. He was there. Because they tried to make it look like Andre didn't show up. They tried the Greek guy as substitute, and he failed the physical. And I'm like, no. The Greek guy said, I'm not fighting this guy. But when you talk about management, Andre, once again, you know, have to win. So when you take a guy that's 0-9, 0-20, and 0 and whatever, a lot of times these guys are more talented than you think. There were guys I trained with. I'm like, how the hell is this guy 0-10?
Yeah.
Toe-to-toe with him in there.
But, okay, now tell me, did Andre's manager know, like in his debut, did he know the background of the opponent?
Tom, that's a great question. That one I can't tell. It was not there for that one. My dad actually was one of the cornermen of that fight. My dad was one of the cornermen in that fight. So I was in school, but he was telling me all about it. But I remember being in the gym, and I remember this guy coming in with contracts, and he was having these guys sign contracts on the spot, and I'm like, yeah, I just didn't like it because it gave him too much control, you know. But in his mind was, see, the sad thing about boxing, and we know this, we've discussed this 1,000,000,001 times, boxing is a snake eats snake sport.
Right.
And one of the best trainers in Philadelphia was a guy, he passed away about 10 years ago, Jimmy Arthur. And we've had guys on the show that have been with Jim, that have known Jimmy, trained with him. Jimmy reminded me a lot of Eddie Futch. He was a very small man, very quiet, but when he spoke, you listened. He barely spoke over a whisper, but he commanded attention. The problem with Jimmy is he a lot of times didn't get along with a lot of managers because he didn't take no shit. So if I'm a manager and I have this fighter and Jimmy's training him, but Jimmy's giving a lot of pushback, well, you know what? He had issues with substance abuse. I'm looking for any way that, hey, Jimmy is the guy and get the guy a lot of knowledge. But then when I get the chance, I'm going to pull the plug and I'm going to pull in, say, a Freddie Roach or a Buddy McGirt or a Ted Gass, a big name. So Jimmy was basically a pauper. He did all the dirty work, got no recognition. And because of his previous, issues, a lot of times guys were not afraid to snake him. I would see like that happen. So it's like, it's hard to, like, now this trainer that I'm not going to bring up his name, but a lot of times you do something like this. In his mind, I can get snaked out here. So if I have a fighter and we're making $500 a fight, and he builds his record up, and he's now up to the couple $1,000, 10, 20, 30, 40,000 and more per fight, he leaves me, I get nothing. But if we take the B side, where they need an more, so instead of getting 500 for this fight, we may get 1,000 for this fight because they want us to take this fight knowing that we're going to be an uphill climb, but we're getting double the money. But you never progress past that 1,000 because the guys are like, no, we know we can beat you. We'll offer you 1,000, and you'll never get past that. You're not taking the risk to take low and build high.
Yeah.
And I think part of it was he was afraid once we start building high, this guy's going to leave me, and I'm going to get nothing. Yeah, it sucks because, like, if you keep a guy and he's say 1-7 or 2-6 and whatever, and he's only making that 1,000, there's no threat of him really going anywhere else because there's no market for him.
Right. Well, yeah, that's the life. I was talking about the subject today with a couple of my friends about how boxing is one of those sports where it's just classic that people that participated in it are taken advantage of. 6 ways to Sunday. And the old stigma of the boxer's got to be stupid because he takes a bunch of punches to the head doesn't help. That's kind of the start of it. That's why that was kind of an easy sport to have the mob, really wield a hold over back in the day. But, there's all sorts of things that can influence fighters these days, one way or another. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot more fixed outcomes than we realize. I always suspected that that whole Manny Pacquiao versus Timothy Bradley first fight. Jesus, I still to this day will say that was fixed.
And I know some people that are Manny Pacquiao haters. I was talking about the one guy last week that he would always say and I couldn't remember the one fighter's name. It was Joshua Claude. Claude threw that fight. He purposely took a dive. The fight went to distance. Yeah, but he knew he would knock Pacquiao out, so he didn't throw any punches.
Okay.
The guy basically got tuned up, and he got hit a couple times. He went into a shell.
Yeah.
But the same guy hated Manny Pacquiao, picked him to lose every fight, and then when Bradley won that fight, no, Bradley deserved that decision. The hell he didn't, because the guy you picked. You still can say, hey, I picked so-and-so to win. He lost that fight. He got the decision. So, I mean, you see a lot of the underbelly stuff of it. And it's funny. I was watching a highlights last night of a fight I totally forgot, which was back probably in the mid-2000s, 2004, 2005. And it was a heavyweight title fight between Andrew Galata and John Ruiz. I forgot they fought, and I probably wiped it from my memory. But it came up on my YouTube list of hey, highlights of this fight. And I'm like,
how many fouls?
I remember them even fighting. Wow. Well, here's how it was. If you find, I have to send it to you guys. Galata scored 2 knockdowns, I think, in the second round. So he had a 10-7 round there. And something where Ruiz's trainer, Norman Stone, who was just a complete whack job, was pissed off about something. And I guess Ruiz landed a few punches, but his tape was loose. And the referee called the time to fix the tape. And he started, you motherfucker, you asshole. And he started flipping out. So then later, something again, and Stone's doing something, and the referee's over there, and then he's like, you fucking cocksucker. And the referee's like, you're out. You're ejected.
I remember that. Yeah.
I've forgotten all about that. He threw it out of the corner mid-fight. Stone's walking back, and Don King was promoted. I'm going to sue this referee for everything he's got. The fix is in. Maybe the fix was in because Ruiz got the decision, and from them highlights, he sure as hell didn't deserve it. Especially taking 2 knockdowns.
Yeah. So the foul pole didn't get any fouls in that one, huh?
No. There was a lot in there because it was hard fight the referee because you figure you had a notorious, fouler in Galata and a notorious clincher in Ruiz. You knew that fight was going to be artistically pleasing. And another one, and you're unpopular when Ring Magazine makes fun of you getting injured. And it popped into my mind last night was a picture and a caption from Ring Magazine back in 2003 when John Ruiz was going to fight Roy Jones.
Right.
Whatever happened at the one press conference or weigh-in or something where Norman Stone got in an altercation with Jones and Murchison cold-cocked him and knocked him out.
Wow.
And they're like, usually we would never make fun of a man unconscious needing medical attention. But this is Norman Stone, so we feel that it's okay. and I guess when he got down, his shirt kind of came up, and I'm like, his shirt also came up, which, kind of hurt the eyes of everybody that saw it, and he made fun of him being, like, so pale white and out of shape. But when you're knocked unconscious and in need of medical assistance, you're that unpopular that you're being made fun of.
Right. Well, we got some results to go over from last week. Some big fights went down.
I apologize. I was actually at a party last week.
Well then.
Yeah, I was at a party last week.
Mr. Popular.
I was serving as the DJ.
Yeah? How many people did you give COVID to? No, just kidding.
I got a little bit of I think I'm getting a cold tonight, and I'm like, oh boy. You can't even sneeze now. I'm thinking, a hold or something because everybody's going to look at you.
Yep, spreading it. Herd immunity, right?
Yeah.
Spread it wide. Did you have to do like a temperature check before you went in the party or anything? No? Party hard.
And it was all outdoors. It was a graduation party. There was only 20-some people there. It was a real small party. I just brought the...
See, if you have more than 100 people in New Hampshire, you got to all wear masks. That's the deal.
Yeah, well, some of the older relatives they got there. Most of us, we were all outside. I brought the big speaker with, and I built a 5-hour playlist of, just dance songs and shit like that. And I just kind of put it on. I'd grab the microphone every few minutes and I'd, just sing a little bit and, give a shout out and, it's that. So, I mean, that was pretty cool.
Well, I actually watched some boxing this weekend, so I made up for you not watching boxing. I watched the Erislandy Lara versus Greg Vendetti fight, and, that was the biggest fight of the week, really. And I didn't see the fight, but, we talked about last week, Tony Luis, our former guest that we had on the show years back. Mm-hmm. He had a really tough fight against Arnold Barboza Jr., and I did watch like a post-fight speech he did on video about the fight, and he was a little bruised up, a little banged up, but, obviously lost by unanimous decision. It was a tough fight for him. And he said something about an injury. He's like, no excuses, but I did have an injury going into this fight, and I need to get it checked out. And it was like some kind of torn muscle in his rib cage that he was dealing with. So, yeah, not at his best, kind of apologized, but Arnold Barboza Jr. is not really any slouch. No cheap date, as Tom would say. And we also had Victor Postal on the losing side. He got postalized by Jose Carlos Ramirez. So that was. I don't know if that was an upset or not. I mean, both of those guys are good fighters too. And then we had Vincent Fagenboots losing to Jama Saidi on Friday. Also, Jack Colque getting the win over Abbas Barao. Friday the 28th. And then we've got some action this weekend, but as Tony said, there's not a lot of wow fights going on in boxing the next few weeks. But there's a couple worth mentioning. Going on Sunday's the 6th. We'll go to Saturday first. Saturday, some interesting ones. Okay. So this fight's in Switzerland Saturday. I just thought the names were interesting. This is sort of got to be the mismatch of the week as well. We got Simon Zackenhuber. He is 10-0. Fighting Mevludin Suleimani. 5-8-3. His record is, his name looks just like the guy that that Trump shot a missile at over there. Trump ordered to be killed over there in Iran. Suleimani. It's said the same way, but not spelled the same way. I don't know how it's actually pronounced. I shouldn't say that. Looks like it's pronounced the same way. There's another mismatch of the week. That's the only one of two fights on the card in Thailand, we got Satana Luangphon. He's 11-0-1 at Super Bantamweight, fighting Joel Kwong, who's 5-9, 5 wins, 9 losses, for title, the WBC Asian Boxing Council Super Bantamweight title. Crazy. The other fight is a 3-0 fighter against a 9-1 fighter at bantamweight. Anyway. Bigger one over in the United Kingdom, we have Samir Ziani at super featherweight, 31-3-1, fighting Alex Dilmagani, who's 19-1-1 for the EBU super featherweight title. And there's really absolutely nothing else on that card worth mentioning. And there's 3 TBAs still listed on BoxRec. So somebody's going to have to come out of the crowd in Yorkshire, United Kingdom. They don't figure this out.
Do the old Tim Thomas show. You know, Richard.
Go ahead.
We were talking about fights and upcoming fights, just like we were discussing last week. You know, just like you said a few seconds ago, we're not looking at a lot of marquee fights right now, and you're not seeing any real big names. I mean, you're getting some decent scraps out there, and you're getting the Povetkin and Dillian White fights, and guys that are trying to jockey, for contendership and getting some recognition. You're getting some world title fights out there, but like I said, none of the marquee names. You're not getting the Pacquiaos, you're not getting the Spences or the Crawfords, the Triple Gs or the Canelos or any of those guys. And then funny, we talked last week about what we think, and my friend who I met last year going to Vegas, we were on the same flight, and we were at the Canelo Danny Jacobs fight. I became friends with him and his wife. We became Facebook friends, and he was supposed to go to Vegas 2 weeks ago on the same flight I was. We both canceled. He was supposed to go. He had already booked a trip there, and there was expected to be the Canelo fight, and then hoping things would stop getting postponed. So last night, he posted something not boxing related, and he said, listen, he goes, I don't want to make a political discussion out of this. I don't want to have an argument out of this. I am just reporting something that I saw on the internet that I found interesting. And it was a post that the CDC has advised states to get ready for a November 1st vaccination, beginning. Not just the approval, but the actual start. And he goes, crazy, it's like the same week as, the election, which I don't think is coincidental. But I said to him, Vinny, I'm
get your
going to
vaccine, cast your vote at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And I said, Vinny, my friends a couple weeks ago, they asked me, because obviously I'm the, all-knowing why fights get, canceled. Obviously, in the manager contract signing room when these fights get signed and postponed and all that, because, they said, hey, we got to have Tony in here. But they asked me, they said, why did the Mike Tyson Roy Jones get postponed? Like, I know, right? I said, guys, I'm not going to give you, I said, this is just my speculation. And I told Vinny this last night, and I said, they said they wanted to give it more time and give the fighters more time to get ready, because Tyson hasn't fought in years and Jones has been a couple years.
They also said the big number one reason was they wanted to sell more tickets, more pay-per-views.
Well, exactly. More pay-per-views, because right now you can't sell tickets, right?
Yeah.
But here is what I think. And I said this a week ago, and I told my friends last night, and I told Vinny last night when we were talking, I said, my thought process is, they said, okay, a vaccine is available in a limited dosage starting November. And, and that can be the people that are most, the frontline workers, people that are in your hospitals, your doctor's offices, and then your high-risk people with underlying medical conditions, people that are maybe disabilities or diabetes or things like that. So So then, if you can get those populations safe, then you take people like us, especially us, Rich, because we're younger, we're healthier people, figuring if we get it, we can fight it off and get that herd immunity. And I said, if they can say, okay, the most at-risk population is now vaccinated and safe, where it will be a limited spread, if a spread at all, if other people are still getting it, we can open up an arena to live attendance. And they can say, you know what, maybe we can open the Staples Center for maybe not, 20,000, but 10,000 or every other seat. And so that way we can get, people in attendance for Mike Tyson, Roy Jones. That's my thought process. If that is out ready at November 1st, you're giving 4 weeks. 4 weeks to say, you know what, shit, we can put asses in these seats.
Yep.
You don't believe
and that's the theory of the week by Tony the Tornado.
And I said, the next really big fight they're looking at is Danny Garcia and Errol Spence, November 21st. Coincidence?
Yeah.
3 weeks after the supposed release date, right? So, now say the release gets pushed back and say, you know what, shit, we don't have enough dosages, we don't have enough data, we just can't ethically roll this out until, say, December. December 1st, we can, not November 1st. I have a feeling that the Garcia and Spence camps are talking, and they're going to say, you know what? Hey, Danny Garcia, you hurt your hand in training. Let's push the fight back, whether he hurt his hand or not. So I think that they're also banking on the potential of enough of a fan access in person.
Well,
November 21st.
It appears that Tony has his own crystal ball, Tom.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see. We will see.
I may be way off my rocker here. I may be. But it's just, one of those things that kind of just sticks in my gut,
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's all kinds of secret plans going on. You notice Dr. Fauci's been pretty much off the radar the last couple of weeks. I haven't heard a whisper from him.
He came out and said something today. And my one friend's like, every time this idiot speaks, the stock markets go down.
Shut up, asshole. That's probably why. They did say he's been getting death threats, so probably be a good reason to keep quiet for a while. Anyway, ESPN.
Part of that was the big controversy. Pelosi going and getting their hair done.
Yeah.
You're shutting everything down, but you're above the law.
Yes, fabulous stuff. She was set up, though. She was set up. It's all set up.
Set up for kid.
Anyway, ESPN had some fights. Has some fights going on Saturday. The main event is for the WBO World Super Featherweight title. Also, ESPN recently re-signed the talented Andre Ward, gold medalist, and so he's locked up with them for a while. So Jonathan Oquendo versus Jamel Herring is the main event. It's a super featherweight fight, but very good records for each guy. Jonathan Oquendo comes in at 31-6, and he's just lost one of his last 6. And Herring as well has only lost one of his last 6, but he's 21-2. And like I said, WBO, World Boxing Organization, World Super Featherweight title. And then we have Steven Nelson coming in undefeated, 16-0 at super middleweight against DeAndre Ware, who's 13-2-2. And then we don't have a Jesus fight of the week, I don't think, but we got a Jesse fight here. Jesse Rodriguez. He's a light flyweight. We got to do what we got to do with what we got. He's 11-0.
What concerns me about this Jamal Herring fight was, didn't Herring have bouts with COVID just over the summer?
Oh, I don't know. Well, unless he just gets one of those people that gets it twice.
He was supposed to fight in July.
Usually when that happens, though, I know they did it with the UFC. You have to get like so many negative tests before they allow you to fight.
Right.
So maybe that's what they did with him too. But Anyway, Janiel Rivera is Jesse
Yeah.
Rodriguez's opponent. He is 18-6-3. That wraps it up for a Saturday, and then we got Sunday. We got actually one fight worth mentioning, and maybe a couple more. We gotta go to MMA shit. Alright, come on. Sunday. Alright, what do we got here? We have... Ooh, big fight. Big records, anyway, in the main event here in Thailand. Sunday. Kampi Fayam, his record is 20 wins, 4 losses, 2 draws. Fighting Panya Uthok, who's 53-8 for the WBA Asia Super Featherweight title. But those 8 losses have come recently. He's lost 5 of his last 6. Panya Uthok, 53-8. That's a record. Alright, but the big one is on Fox on Sunday. Australia Fox. I don't know if it's United States Fox. So probably. So from the Microsoft Theater in Los Angeles, the welterweight Yordinis Ugas, 25-4, fighting Abel Ramos, who's 26-3-2, for the vacant WBA World Welterweight title. And nothing really too crazy on the undercard. There's a couple fights. Somebody's always got to go fight. Oh, here's our Jesus fight of the week. I lied. Jesus Alejandro Ramos, 12-0, fighting Esteban Garcia, 14-0 at welterweight. So there's your somebody's always got to go fight and a Jesus fight. The same fight. Can't beat it. Cody Crowley, 18-0, fighting Josh Torres, who's 22-6-2, also at welterweight. And then we have super lightweights, Bakhtar Akhmedov, 7-1, fighting Ray Perez, who's 24-11. That's it. A slow week for boxing. We say that real slow. MMA, we had some fights last week. I believe I didn't get to see the main events because I guess, it's a fight night, so I was thinking, oh, geez, I'll be free, right? No, they decided ESPN Plus is going to have all the main event card, and I didn't feel like hooking up my computer and doing the free stream thing, so I said, yeah, forget about it. I'll just watch the undercard. So I saw most of those fights. The notable one I want to mention was, I know they have it first round, but I believe it was second round. Polyana Viana versus Emily Whitmire. Did you see that one, Tom?
No.
Maybe it was Mallory Martin versus Hannah Cyphers. Oh, yeah. The first fight, I think it was, rear naked choke in the second round. So Mallory Martin comes out against this girl, Hannah Cyphers. And Hannah Cyphers is just unloading shots. Like, you figure the knockout's coming any minute. Mallory Martin is just getting beat the hell up. Second round starts, fight goes to the ground. Mallory Martin, as Cyphers turns over to get up, rear naked choke. Sunk it. Immediately. So most unbelievable comeback I've ever seen from round 1 to round 2. But Cyphers, she just couldn't string the punches together enough. And then Emily Whitmire, Polyana Viana made quick work of her with an armbar submission. Just got her in the right position to sink it. And then Sean Brady versus Christian Aguilera ended up with a Sean Brady win by guillotine choke, 1 minute and 47 seconds into round 2. And Bruce Leroy was looking fairly good. He had a little awkwardness at the beginning of the fight, but 3 minutes and 38 seconds into the contest, he sunk the rear naked choke on Austin Springer, and that was it. So, he's looking better and better. And then Zach Cummings got
he
Go ahead.
He's been around a while, too, so it's on out.
Yeah, and of course he was looking like his goony self on the way to and from the ring. doing his stupid little dances. Oh, Jesus. Oh, in that case, even if there isn't a crowd, he's gotta be flamboyant. Zach Cummings got a big win over Alessio Di Chirico by UD, and then Impa Kasangane over Maki Patolo by unanimous decision. And then Ricardo Lamas over Bill Algio by unanimous decision. A lot of unanimous decisions. There was 4 straight submissions to start the contest, and then 5 straight unanimous decisions. No, 6 straight. Neil Magny made not quick work, but pretty easy work of Robbie Lawler, surprisingly enough. I read about this fight. I didn't get to see it, but...
Ugly, yeah. I'm glad you did, because it was sad. I mean, nothing against Magny. I mean, Magny's, he doesn't get a lot of credit because he's very workmanlike.
Right.
But he won it. And he did what he had to do, because Robbie Lawler's hard to take out, but Lawler just cannot evolve to the new version of this. He's based on explosiveness. And he was just the old cliche. You could tell what he wanted to do. He knew what he had to do. But the mind was good, body was not.
Yeah.
It was just sad to watch that. I mean, he was on the ground. He was helpless. He really couldn't.
The article that I read about the fight was basically saying that, he looked like he needed to retire.
There was not one minute where, because you always think with a guy like that there's that explosiveness, and he could just come out of nowhere, but he couldn't do anything. Just awful to see that.
Yeah. So
hopefully he's had a great career. I don't know what he's hanging around for like this now. And eventually he's going to be in the smaller if he keeps going, because there's just no point in seeing this over and over again. And look at the wars he's been in.
Right. And then, of course, the main event, another loss for Anthony Smith. Another win for Alexander Rakic. Rakic moves to 13-2. Smith falls to 33-16. The unanimous decision again.
Did you see that one, Rich?
I did not. I didn't.
Did you see that? Okay, well, Anthony Smith's really in a bind, because I guess if he stays at 185, he has to starve himself all the time. But at 205, his opponent looked like he weighed about 220.
Right.
And Smith was, those leg kicks brutal. And after the first round, Smith was really hurt.
Yeah.
I guess the next day he had to have medical assistance in his room. They had to ice him, and he was on crutches. And I mean, he was a mess. Now, he did finish, but just his career, he's just between a rock and a hard place career-wise.
Right.
Because if he goes back down to middleweight, it's permanent starvation. But size means something. And those leg kicks were brutal. And Basic also just was able to control him on the ground. I mean, it was a fight that, on paper, Smith was a more technical guy that fought through opposition, but it was a mismatch. So, see where he goes.
Right. Well, thanks to Tom. We have the play-by-play replay. I got to watch more of these, but I just didn't feel like doing the old feed thing and finding the stream and doing all that crap. Just not in the mood that night, but we'll try to make sure we see these ones. Hopefully these ones are all free this week on Saturday night from the UFC Apex. The UFC Fight Night 176 now. Overeem versus Sakai. Alistair comes in at 46-18. A lot of experience for an MMA fighter these days. He's going up against the very talented Augusto Sakai, who is 15-1-1. And we don't have GSP right now, although we've heard some rumors might be back. But we have OSP, Ovens St. Preux. He is 24-14, fighting Alonzo Menefield, who's 9-1. And then the third fight on the main card, we've got Michael Pereira, 23-11, fighting Zalim Imadev, who is 8-2. And we have Kevin Natividad, who is 9-1, fighting Brian Kelleher, 21-11. Tiago Moises, 13-4, fighting Jalen Turner, who's 9-5. We got Bartosz Fabinski, 15-3, fighting Andre Muniz, who's 19-4. Montana De La Rosa, 11-5, fighting Viviane Araujo, who is 8-2. And second fight of the night, Marcos Rogerio de Lima, 17-6-1, fighting Alexander Romanov, who's 11-0. Yikes! I wonder who those 11 fighters were, though. To have them only on the second fight of the night. First fight of the night, Cole Smith, 7-1, fighting Hunter Azor, who's 8-1. Pretty good matchups. And by the way, Augusto Sakai, his only loss was to Czech Congo in Bellator 179 by split decision. He had a draw against Dan Charles in the fight before that. So basically, 2016, 2017 was a bad year. Bad year. May's a bad time for him to fight, too. Both of those fights were in May. His last fight, though, was in May. It was just at the end of May, and he won. Split decision. Still difficult.
Well, this is a step up for him. I know Overeem's been around forever, but this is Sakai's fight to win, I think. But well, can't count out all that experience. I mean, and Overeem still thinks he's going to be in line for another title shot. I don't see that in the near future, but got to give him credit for optimism.
Right. So that's about it for the upcoming. Bellator has an event next week, but it's Friday, so we can talk about it Thursday night. Friday, September 11th. Friday the 11th this year. Anyway. This is a local story I wanted to talk about, and then we're going to get to a big scandal you guys probably haven't heard about, so I'm going to break it to you. Anyway, MMA fighter cop gets fired up here in New Hampshire. This happened, Dover, New Hampshire, after activists highlight incident which left wife with broken ribs. And this guy was an MMA fighter, so that's what's connected to the show. And we also have the whole defund the police movement, you know. And of course, I disagree with that, my father being a cop, but I would be kind of lying if I didn't say that I think there needs to be more accountability in the ranks of the officers. We don't need to defund them, but we need to figure out how to bring more accountability to the whole law enforcement system, you know, being involved in civil cases and everything like that. I can definitely tell you that, you know, some people with some good causes get screwed because the process is so bullshit, you know. It's just designed to basically help everybody who's in the club, you know, who's supporting the cause, but, you know, if somebody comes in representing themselves, you're going to get screwed. No matter what cause you have, usually. But, of course, I had the press, so that's the only reason I was able to win. Sort of win. Didn't win everything. But anyway. This was happened in Dover. This is a domestic violence issue. And the cops got called, and they arrested the wife instead of the husband. But the wife had broken ribs. So they fired the cop after an internal investigation. But this is after the wife was basically homeless. She was not given access to her kids. There was no word that they were going to even drop the charges against her or anything. So it was kind of a crazy case. And then, you know, as these activist groups will do, they jumped on board and figured out a way to get this a little bit more attention. And obviously got something done with the officer. He's fired. So his name is Ronald R.J. Letendre. It actually occurred in Rollinsford, even though he's a Dover police officer. But basically, Sarah, his wife, was charged and arrested with simple assault, and all he had apparently was scratches on him. But he's a former MMA fighter, and supposedly, you know, he's actually the aggressor. So they had also a petition on change.org um, using some backstory of someone else's characterization other than the reporter that wrote the story here. But this story that is on this page says Officer R.J. Letendre violently abused his wife and had his police friends harass her as she tried to find safety. Studies have shown that around 40% of all police officers' family members experience domestic abuse, and the Dover PD would be foolish to think they are immune from this horrifying statistic. So this petition demanded that the officer be put on leave while investigations are carried out into the events. And so yeah, Officer Letendre has filed charges against his own wife for scratches made out of self-defense, and he's trying to get full custody of their young children. And then they had some protesters in downtown Dover in late July. So she got the attention she needed in this case anyway. But who knows if she'll be able to get the case thrown out against her, or custody of her kids, visitation, whatever. If they'll actually, because sometimes they'll take that as, oh geez, you like to make noise, so we're not going to do you any favors because you made us look bad. So we'll see what happens, but hopefully they do the right thing and drop the charges against her. But that's an interesting statistic. I think I saw it on a Law and Order episode too that was talked about. How many times the officers are involved in domestic violence. It's kind of crazy. 40%. It's a high number. You wouldn't think it would be that high. But yeah. Merrimack County Attorney Robin Davis noted that she suffered 2 broken ribs due to her husband's alleged abuse. Broken rib that was dislocated and a broken rib that was not dislocated. She said, anytime you break a bone, that's a serious injury. She has serious injuries. He has scratches. That's less serious. Factually, they're different. Anyway, yeah, they should drop that charge. Getting to a more salacious scandal, let's talk about Dana White's sex tape lawsuit. Serious case here. This guy was probably quietly arrested last year. Did some small time, but now he's filing a civil suit. And basically Dana White is trying to have it dismissed. And he has to reveal, in having it dismissed and giving attention to it, that he was an extortion victim. Okay? A guy named Ernesto Joshua Ramos. He served prison time for the $200,000 extortion attempt that involved sex tapes. Ramos was 43, a real estate agent and personal trainer. He accused White in the lawsuit of breaking a deal to pay him $450,000 in return for not disclosing White's name after the criminal case closed. Ramos also claimed that he did not demand money from White and that White's lawyers provided false derogatory information about him to the FBI to get agents to launch an investigation. So basically their papers say, after pleading guilty to a felony of attempting to extort defendant Dana White and spending nearly a year in federal prison, plaintiff Joshua Ramos now seeks the court's assistance to complete what he could not finish the first time, separating Mr. White from a substantial amount of money. Now, I can tell you for a fact, $450,000 is not a substantial sum of money to Mr. Dana White. He will buy a house in his own neighborhood just to bulldoze it to make his yard bigger. He has done this, so. In Vegas, where he lives, there's not cheap neighborhoods. Anyway. Basically, they're saying just because it's a civil lawsuit doesn't make it any the less a scam or a scheme. White really didn't want to comment too much. He spoke at the Republican National Convention recently. He gave a speech, but his attorney did not respond for comment for this story. But anyway, early in the criminal case, a federal magistrate judge signed an unusual protective order prohibiting disclosure of the businessman's name involved in the charges against this personal trainer guy. Not even his initials could be used in the court paperwork or filings, so his name remained secret for years. The case was first reported by the Review-Journal, stemmed from what prosecutors alleged was an October 2014 secret overseas rendezvous between an unnamed businessman and an adult nightclub dancer. White at the time was overseeing a UFC event in Brazil, says the civil suit. So basically White, who's married to a woman named Ann Stella White, went to high school with her, so high school sweethearts. He has been notorious, rumored to be a playboy, sleeps with everybody. So this guy apparently got him in between a rock and a hard place, basically. He was married, and he'd been seeing this stripper at Spearmint Rhino for months, paying her large sums of money to dance for him, according to the suit. The stripper was actually Ramos's live-in girlfriend. So she taped herself in White without White's knowledge, having sex in their hotel room in Brazil, the lawsuit states. She used his cell phone to get the footage. So FBI agents arrested Ramos in Las Vegas in January 2015, charged him with trying to extort $200,000 from the businessman after the encounter overseas with the dancer. FBI agents videotaped the exchange of the money between him and Ramos during a late-night meeting at the businessman's office, federal prosecutors alleged. Crazy. So basically, here's White's actual comment after the lawsuit was filed in April. I'm not sure why I'm just reading about this now, but he said, "I just found out that a lawsuit was filed against me yesterday. Bullshit lawsuit," he said. This guy went to federal prison for trying to extort me over 5 years ago. Now he's hired a lawyer who is also a convicted felon, and he's trying to extort me again for $10 million. He got no money from me last time, and he won't be getting any money from me this time. I look forward to the court dismissing this quickly so I can get rid of these scumbags forever. The suit, prepared by Las Vegas attorney Ian Christopherson, claimed White and his lawyers offered Ramos money during the criminal case to persuade him to plead guilty, but the suit said that they did not come through with any cash after he admitted in court to the crime. So, yeah, that makes sense. He would do something like that. So the suit says the actions of White were fraudulent, oppressive, and designed to encourage Ramos to plead guilty so he'd negotiate a substantial settlement which would prevent the disclosure of his actions at trial for the personal benefit of White and his related businesses and interests. So yeah, he just didn't want the story to get out. So yeah, that would totally make sense. They obviously were able to get the courts to keep it quiet, but unreal. But there were rumors, actually, during the Zions thing. People were telling me that there was one of the Zions models that was in one of the sexy commercials that they did, that Dana was sleeping with her. And there was even somebody that claimed that Dana White had an affair with the actress Mandy Moore back in the day. I think it's 2006-07 time period, so I don't know, it was before then. That's when I heard it. So yeah, he gets around if you listen to the rumors. But this one sounds like it was documented. But he obviously didn't go about it in the right way. He got himself caught. Had to do a year in prison. But he wants some money for it, Hey, that's how a shakedown goes. I just can't believe they got him to... This all happened in Brazil, and they got him in the United States. Crazy. Anyway, that's about it for us this week. Right on the money here. About 9:01 I called you guys, and now it's 10:01. 10:02. Hour-long show. By the way, our interview we were trying to get for this week with the Asian fighter from the UFC. Ended up being a scratched fight because Claudia Gadella had a foot injury or something like that. So they're keeping us in the loop. We're going to be on her schedule for whenever she gets a new opponent for whatever fight card she gets on. So the next interview will probably be a UFC fighter if I don't find somebody before then. Alrighty.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
All right, guys. Good points.
Adios.
Enjoy my conspiracy theory.
The crystal ball.